Hello, Parsboro Community Radio listeners. Welcome to Exploring the Neighborhood with your hosts, Thor and Debbie, here on CICR 99.1 on your FM dial. We'd like to thank Kanza as the sponsor for our show.
For those of you who are not aware, Kanza is Cumberland County's only Careers Nova Scotia Centre and a vital participant in this area's road to prosperity. This year, Kanza is celebrating 15 years of serving the area and providing valuable employment and educational opportunities. Our goal for Exploring the Neighborhood is to take you on a series of half-hour adventures that include road trips, candid interviews, and commentaries.
We'll focus on the area's homegrown businesses, unique landmarks, and emerging talent. We're hoping to shine a well-deserved light on the local endeavors that promote eco-friendliness and self-sufficiency.
This is Thor coming to you actually live from the Eco Tour offshoot that goes to Minudie. We just stopped at the XTR gas station. We just picked up a couple of coffees and we're touring the countryside and right now staring at some cows as we pass by.
We're passing some baby cows. Oh, cute, they're in the pond. And right next to it is the tidal bore, which is absolutely beautiful. The sun is shining down, glistening. Look how shiny the mud is. Makes me want to go stomp around in it.
We're just passing the tidal bore and it seems to be low tide and the sun is shining right on the water.
Actually, we're coming up to the Baronsfield Cemetery. We had found this cemetery a while back and it's quite a long road to get to the cemetery, but we parked and we walked and we kept walking and walking and walking and we're like, where is the cemetery? It was a beautiful fall day and we were about to the point of turning around, but we found it and it was completely overgrown. No one had been back there to cut anything. It was a great experience to find these old gravestones. Naturally, we took a bunch of pictures. It was just a really nice fall thing to do, so you should check out the Baronsfield Cemetery.
There was a sign at the entrance to the cemetery that read, "Please respect the dead." And even though we did take pictures, we did respect the dead. And just as we're coming up to that cemetery, look at that. A tower, communications tower. A strange beast in the middle of nowhere. And now we actually get to see the windmills in Amherst. So insightful. I'm glad I have a partner. Just adds so much to this show.
I know Amherst is over there. I just didn't know what to say. Beautiful farmland around here.
Let's add to that conversation by saying that we woke up real early this morning and I actually saw a couple of rough grouse. Would have been nice to have seen them a little later in the season. We've seen a lot of game. On Father's Day, we actually saw a big black bear out near Joggins, just hanging around.
Hey, but we got to eat some bear.
Thanks to our friend Simon Carter, we did manage to eat some. His wife shot this monster bear in New Brunswick, and they had a little extra, so we were lucky enough to get some, and we do say thank you.
I will never think of bears ever the same. I used to think they were cute. Now they're tasty.
There's a beautiful St. Bernard just taking a dump to our left. You never know what you're going to see on the Minudie tour.
Beautiful abandoned houses. Maybe not beautiful to everyone, but I think they're beautiful. And fallen down barns with beautiful views of tidal bore mudland behind it. It's gorgeous.
It almost looks futuristic. flat mud leads into the windmills of Amherst. Sci-fi movie, anybody?
Across the beautiful fields and plains, I spy the Minudie schoolhouse and the church, which we are coming upon.
One of the things that's really difficult with a radio show is accurately being able to express what you visually see. We're just passing a welcome to Minudie. Thank you so much, Minudie. First time we came out to Minudie, we managed to see a deer. Beautiful deer that was scrambling to get out from in front of our car. Luckily, it made it. We're passing the Minudie Community Hall. Debbie is a fan of cemeteries. We've taken pictures of cemeteries all around North America. And from that perspective, as a photographer, I do believe that this area is just a gold mine. So we stopped at Minudie and we looked at the Nova Scotia flag and we said there's got to be something that is going to tell us the story of Minudie. Welcome to Minudie. It's located near the famous fossil cliffs of Joggins. Tongue twister there. The winter frost and forceful tides erode the cliffs so that every year new fossils emerge. We're going to head out there soon. Near Joggins at the Lower Cove is the site of King Seaman's grindstone quarry. Thousands and thousands of tons of grindstones were quarried there and exported all over the world. And just a few kilometers away is the Shenectaux Game Sanctuary. This area is dedicated to the preservation of its wildlife.
Actually, I heard a story. It's about Doyle's stolen head. Have you heard about it?
Not at all.
It's kind of a weird story. There is an unusual story, a little bit macabre, but nonetheless, it's kind of interesting. There's a story of a man named Doyle from around the Minudie area. He was one of the few criminals to have been hung in Cumberland County. His unfortunate fate, however, did not end there. It is said that there were scientists in Boston who discovered Doyle's crime and wondered about the shape of the skull he might have. That's kind of weird. I don't know why they would be interested in the shape of his skull, but that's the story. Apparently, one night, not long after his burial, two men dug up his remains and removed his head. They quickly reburied the headless body and left for Boston the next day. But Doyle's bad luck was to continue. The rest of his body did not lie in peace either, as a huge storm washed his coffin off the bank where it was buried into the river. So, he's in the river, and apparently his head is somewhere in Boston.
Good place to be.
Then we have Colonel Barron, another man of English military background who served under General Wolfe and was granted a large estate in Minudie. This property was next to the Debar estate and became known as Barron's Field. He came to Minudie in 1759 with his wife and daughter and a dinner horn that could be heard for miles. A dinner horn? Okay. When a clergyman would come to the area, Colonel Barron would stand on high ground, blow his horn, and beckon all to come to service. That means worship?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Human Almanac. Another interesting Minudie resident apparently was Peter Brine, a man known as the Human Almanac. At the time of the expulsion, like many Acadians, he hid in the woods to avoid deportation. He lived in hiding for so many years and in that time developed amazing talents. Although he had no formal education, he apparently devised a method to foretell the changes of the moon to within an hour. He could also make detailed astronomical calculations and predict the weather. He became known as the Almanac of the People, even though he could neither read nor write. Always amazing when someone can do things that they're not supposed to be able to do. I always admire that. Then we have the story of Joseph de Bar. Joseph de Bar lived between 1721 and 1824, and he was famous for 3 different talents. He had a long public career starting as a military officer that spanned 3 countries and 6 decades. Joseph de Bar served under General Wolfe at the famous battle on the Plains of Abraham. Apparently, de Bar had just finished carrying out one of his orders moments before the general was killed. Well, apparently he failed. General died. How is that a plus? Among many public appointments, he was British colonial governor and also the lieutenant governor of Cape Breton. It is said for the most part he was a pig-headed nuisance constantly demanding the government for more money. My. Secondly, he was involved in land speculation. He sought out prime areas and either bought them or secured land grants. As a result, he became one of the largest landowners in the Maritimes. In 1765, he was granted 8,000 acres of land known as the Minudie Estate, later to be owned by King Seaman. He preferred to have English tenants and tried to have the Acadians removed from the property. It was a difficult task, as the Acadians had just moved from one part of the estate to another. Those smart little Acadians, I like them. Finally gave up trying and left the area in disgust. He sounds like a greedy guy. 8,000 acres, and especially this gorgeous land here, that's a shame. On a more positive side, yes, we need some positive side for Joseph de Bars. He was an excellent surveyor and map maker. Wonder if he knew the world was actually flat. He left to future generations a wealth of coastal information from the Maritimes all the way down to Florida. The Atlantic Neptune, published in 1776, is a detailed atlas of the east coast of North America. It took 10 years to complete, a magnificent contribution to hydrography, the science of mapping the sea floor. I wonder if he had any submarines at that time. I wonder how he did it. Amos Seaman is one who left a lasting impression on Minudie. And he was born in Sackville in 1788. His parents had immigrated from New England, and they had moved here to escape the Puritans. Everybody moves here to escape something, I guess. And Amos's father was a famous writer. Amos became known as the Grindstone King, and he did not intend to remain poor. So when he came to Minudie, his ambition, being a little bit of a cheapskate and precocious nature, quickly worked in his favor. Although extremely occupied with his businesses, he participated in many public matters. He was a surveyor of highways. He worked towards changes in postal system and improvements on the road. He was a member of the grand jury of the county, assessor, ferryman, and overseer of the poor. For all his aggressiveness in the business world, Amos King Seaman was quite a religious man. He would welcome visiting clergy into his home, and he built 2 churches in Minudie. One for his faith and the other for the Catholics of the area. That's pretty nice to build a church for the other faith. I actually really think that's quite nice. So Canadian of him. And the churches are still here, and that's one of the amazing things here. And there's a school museum that still stands here. Amos apparently valued education, but he didn't even go to school himself until he was old enough to work in the day and pay for evening classes. Even at that, his wife had to teach him to read. I'm glad you don't have to teach me to read. And he had 11 children, and he made sure they were all formally educated. even furnishing them tutors and sending them to finishing school. Throughout his life, he remained involved with education, teaching Sunday school, and building the only schoolhouse in the community. Today, this building houses the King Seaman School Museum, which we're standing right in front of. I'm always intrigued as we go through this area how many houses are falling apart and how much is just going to waste. It's a shame because when you look back at what this area used to be, you realize that this was an area of extreme wealth, prosperity, and businesses were thriving. Just to give you an example, the Seaman estate was large and lavish. In the main house, there were 4 great rooms. The main room was filled with carved stones from his quarries, and the stair rail was made of finely turned mahogany. Not cheap wood, and it doesn't grow here, so it would have had to have been imported. There were 5 bedrooms upstairs and a liquor-stocked cellar downstairs. The 40 by 60 feet kitchen, imagine that, 40 by 60 feet, that's the size of a lot of houses, was furnished with all the latest equipment that money could buy. Above the kitchen, 6 servant quarters. 1 man was employed for the sole purpose of supplying fuel for the 8 fireplaces. And he entertained a lot. It is said that his social events were the envy of everyone. I can bet. Minudie was the social center of Eastern Canada. And now, it's pretty much empty except for the graveyards. One of the things that's fascinating here, first of all, it was originally a Micmac area, and it was actually named after a Micmac word for bag, sack, kind of like Sackville, only a Mick sack. The other thing that's important about this area is that the French, the Acadians, originally settled it. That man de Bars, who oddly enough has a French name, wanted to get rid of them and tried to chase them out, but they stuck around and just moved from one place to another, and some of them are still here. We've met some in the area.
And next to the St. Denis Church is another beautiful graveyard. Many old gravestones and newer gravestones. It is the St. Denis Cemetery, Minudie, 1849. Located right with the church. It's beautiful. It goes back pretty far. Some of these churches you see that have just little tiny, maybe just a couple families, but this is definitely much bigger than that. So lots of town folk from back in the day and even today. And then we do have the Seaman Cemetery, the King Seaman Cemetery with Minudie Lake attached to that. Beautiful cemetery. It's off from the main road. You can drive all the way down. It's gorgeous. Very peaceful. And we have beautiful photography of that as well. A while back when we did visit the King Seaman Cemetery, the groundskeeper there came and talked to us. Can't remember his name, unfortunately, but he let us know that the very last Seaman family member had just recently passed away. This was last fall. So we did check out the gravestone, and unfortunately, I can't remember her first name, but I believe she was the great-granddaughter of Mr. Seaman. So now we are on the very northern tip of the drive and just coming out of Minudie. And again, a big body of water from the Bay of Fundy. It's beautiful, and it's so red. And what is really interesting to me is I lived in Alabama, down in the deep south, for 15 years. And we have clay soil down there, and it's very red, hence where the bricks are made and come from. And I notice here the Bay of Fundy having the exact same color. A lot of our rivers down there are clay red. And it's very similar. It's very interesting to be this far north and to have the same texture to the soil. And country music, don't forget that. After being here in Minudie, and they have the schoolhouse and they have the churches, and they make great mention of the seaman's house, yet I don't see it. Whatever happened to their house? Maybe it's not on the main road, maybe it's off on down another road out of view, but where is this house? What happened to it? It would have made a great museum. I can't even imagine having a kitchen that's 40 by 60 feet. I mean, you'd want to have parties all the time. I can't imagine keeping fireplaces going all the time. I mean, we have a hard time just with our wood-burning stove keeping that going. That's just one, So 8 fireplaces, 6 servants. I could use me a servant.
Please just leave me alone. Please.
I'm going to have only one complaint about this drive. And that is seeing how much of the land gets devoured from the tree cutting. And that is the only downfall that I can find on this drive. Beautiful, gorgeous trees, forests, and then all of a sudden you come to dead, broken off, snapped off, torn down, this land that gets mutilated, clear cut. That is an eyesore, and it's sad too because that's destroying the homes for animals. Of course, they can move on to the next set of woods, but it really interrupts nature and the order of things.
The most popular stop along this tour is probably the Joggins Fossil Museum, but if you take the Minudie tour, you end up in the actual town part of Joggins, not off the main road. And there's this gorgeous bay that has rocks going all the way. When the tide is down, it seems to go in almost a mile or a kilometer. I've got to get that straight. It goes quite deep, and when the tide is high, it just looks like part of the ocean. And it's an amazing place, and they just patched the road as well, which really helps the tourist part of this tour. I'd like to say that compared to some places, this road is actually not in bad shape at all, and it's worth the little tour if you've got an afternoon. Plenty of places to stop and picnic, plenty of places to just stop, take some photos, relax. Nice tour. So, if you're looking to take the Minudie tour, how do you get there? Well, you get on the 242 and you turn right on Baronsfield Road if you're heading towards Joggins. It's right at River Hebert. And then you take that tour around and you end up coming out in Joggins. And the only other thing is that there are actually no businesses that Debbie and I found when we did our little tour. And to recap the brief history of Minudie, the first inhabitants were the Micmac, and they were hunters of the sea as well as the land. They spent the majority of the year fishing along the coast. The Acadians first settled in Minudie in 1672, and they were helped by the Micmac, who supplied them with game and taught them how to hunt. So, what kind of things can bring you to Minudie? Well, on July 10th, they have Minudie Day. August 17th, there is a service at the King Seaman Church. There's a quilt show August 13th and 14th, and there's the Blessing of the Crops on August 14th. And don't forget, the Amos Seaman School Museum and the St. Denis Church are open July 1st to September 1st from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Other things to check out in River Hebert, definitely the Tidal Park. You've got the Heritage Models Museum, which is a wonderful stop before you get on the tour. You can stop also at the Miners Memorial Museum, which is located on Highway 242. And definitely check out the Cumberland Perfect Sleep Company, and those pillows are available at the Joggins Arts and Crafts Emporium in Joggins. One of the things I forgot to mention is, since this is the Bay of Fundy, the entire area along this tour is affected by the daily tides. These are the highest tides in the world. Once the Minudie tour is done, you have the choice to explore Joggins. Start by visiting the Joggins Fossil Cliffs, and then stop and enjoy some deep-fried goodness of Margie's fish and chips. Have one of her ice creams, or find out why the locals like her pizza. After that, right around the corner, you can explore the Joggins Arts and Crafts Emporium, and definitely stop at the Fundy Treasures as well. There's a collection of unique, locally handcrafted items there. Or continue your route and head off to Advocate Harbor and Cap d'Or.
Okay, time has run out. If you'd like to contact us, our email is scotiaheritageproductions@gmail.com.
When it comes to local business, arts, crafts, and entertainment, we'll try our best to provide a global perspective on our community and remind listeners that where one regularly chooses to spend their money is often much more powerful than the occasional vote at the ballot box.
So, help out your talented neighbors and enjoy the unique diversity of what Cumberland, Westmoreland has to offer. And ultimately, you'll be helping yourself. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
So, tune in next week for another episode of Exploring the Neighborhood with your hosts, Thor and Debbie, here on CICR 99.1 on your FM dial.